Hi everyone, IntuitiveEdge here. Welcome once again to my channel. Thanks for joining me. I wanted to take a look at what has been happening in the news with this Trump civil case with Judge Engoron. I think there's some things playing into this that are fueling this, and I want to share with you something that came to me this morning as I was getting ready for my day. And I think it kind of helps things, maybe put things in perspective a little bit, and helps understand why this case is dragging on and what's really behind it. So I'm going to get into a little bit of that in just a moment. I have a perspective on this that some of you may understand and resonate with, but I want to talk about what may be influencing that we're seeing playing out with this court case. Now, as with everything, take what I say and run it by your own inner knowing. And if it doesn't resonate, then feel free to leave it at the door. Take what you feel resonates and leave the rest. Okay, that goes with anything. I want to talk about past lives. So it started this morning when I read online Donald Trump saying that he was going back to court today to, be in that corrupt court, and according to him, talking about Judge Engoron. And we all know what's happening there. And I actually wanted to just say a little prayer and see if I could just tune in to the energies of it. And I started picking up on something that I thought was pretty fascinating. And I didn't have time to get right on here right then and do a video. I had other things I had to do. But I was like, as soon as I get home tonight, I want to talk about this because I think it's really interesting. Let me know what you think. Let's get into it. So what I saw was Donald Trump. I was picturing him in the courtroom today, and today is December 7th. Okay. And I was picturing him sitting in the courtroom, and I sensed that he had some other people that are deceased in his family that were with him. I was picking up on his dad, his grandfather, and his brother, primarily, that were family, along with probably others too. But I sensed that strong male energy and male bond with him in the courtroom. And then I sensed a female, and I got a name with this female. It was like Elizabeth. And then I heard the name also like Christina. And I'm assuming those are two different people, or it could be like Elizabeth Christina, maybe one person with that name. But this person is like a grandmother, is what I was sensing for Trump. And what she was doing was she was helping Donald Trump pull back a little bit and detach a little bit from this whole scenario that's going on. And I kind of felt like the understanding from the soul's perspective on the other side is that when we put our energy into something, we hold that in place. And when we can detach enough and just be a spectator, sometimes we can break the energy that is holding that. And I really feel like if Donald Trump was in a position to be able to let go of his emotional attachment, that this case is about ready to just fall apart. I don't think it's gonna stand. It's gonna fall apart. But I feel like he's holding it there because he's so focused on it. Okay. And that's not a criticism. I'm sure if any of us were in his shoes, we'd be focused on it too. But I felt like this Elizabeth grandmotherly figure was helping kind of pull his energy back from being so invested in what's going on. And rather than be invested, just be a spectator, almost like you're disembodied, where you're just watching. And then I felt a sense of understanding on the part of these guides that were with Trump. A little bit of understanding toward the judge. Now, hear me out. Hear the whole thing. Let me explain this. what I was sensing was they understood why the judge is going after Trump, and why this judge, why it feels so personal to him. That's what I was feeling like. This whole thing feels very personal to the judge. And so I'm like, there has to be something more going on. So then as I'm feeling this energy and I'm feeling into it mentally, emotionally, with my mind's eye, I'm getting this impression of Donald Trump in a past life as a king or a judge. I think he was a king. And I'm talking like ancient history. Ancient, way back. Picture the old kings of antiquity. And here's the scenario that I was seeing playing out in my mind's eye. There's a judge of antiquity sitting on his throne, and somebody gets brought to him. And back then, the king was judge, jury, and executioner, okay? This wasn't like your American justice system or any modern day justice system, okay? So somebody's dragged before the king, and probably a scroll is read that said, this is what they're accused of. And then the king says, okay, yes, he committed that, off with his head. That's kind of how I was picturing this happening. And I was seeing Donald Trump was somebody brought before the king. But what I felt was that person brought before the king in a past life was Judge Engoron. Okay? Watch how this kind of pulls around to modern day. Let me bring this a little bit around to you, okay? This person was brought before what was then Donald Trump, who was the king of whatever kingdom. And what I felt was that person was not innocent. They had done something that was subversive, something that was not good. And the king got wind of it. Maybe he was on a plot to overthrow the king or something like that. This person is brought before the king, Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, okay, that's it. And that person was basically dragged back out and executed. That's what I saw. Now that gave me a little bit of understanding as I was seeing that play out in my mind's eye for present day. And that's what I was being shown, and why the guides that I was pulling into, Elizabeth, the grandmother, and the others, were saying they understood why the judge was doing what he's doing and why it felt so personal to him. This is like a playback, an opportunity. Sometimes we have unfinished business from lifetime to lifetime. And if this person, Engoron, in a past life, say he was doing something, maybe he was in the prime of his life, and he goes before the king, and the king says, nope, you're done, you're out of here. And he gets dragged away kicking and screaming and executed. So it's like, okay, they understood, and they were helping me, I think, to understand. Have some understanding. Doesn't mean that it's right what's happening today. Doesn't mean that this is totally justified what's taking place, because it does seem like it is personal. It doesn't feel like this is just a matter of the law. This is a matter of going after somebody because it's personal. And now we understand why. That soul is incarnated again, feeling all of those feelings again, maybe on an unconscious, subconscious, whatever. And they're pulling into their experience today from the past that they feel, because there's a connection with Donald Trump from that past life. So that's what I saw fueling all of this. In another piece of this puzzle, as I was in a light meditation, watching this scene play in my mind, I saw another player, because I was asking about Letitia James, what's her role in this? And I felt like she was Engoron's wife at that time, in that lifetime. And so she probably had a deep-seated anger and hatred for the judge that basically had her husband offed. This helped me understand why this seems so personal and why a lot of this does not make legal sense. The things, if any of you are following Donald Trump on Truth Social and reading his posts and understanding his perspective on what is taking place with the judge ignoring the appellate court and just legal things that aren't making sense, it kind of makes sense when you think of it as this is someone's personal retribution, a chance at retribution. And what I sensed was that ultimately it would not work. But the key was, and the key is, for Donald Trump to pull back his energy from this and let it fall apart. I felt like it was about to fall apart, and that he had to be careful that he's not the one holding it together by giving it energy. And again, that's not good, bad, right, or wrong, accusing anybody, because any of us in his shoes would feel the same way. We would want to fight, fight, fight to the end. And I think that's Donald Trump's way, is fight to the end. But I do think he's smart and knows when to pull back and when your energy is actually feeding and holding, keeping something afloat rather than letting it sink to the bottom. And I think that this case will sink. It can't stand. That's kind of what I was picking up on. It really can't stand. But when we feed negative things our energy, we keep it alive. So I will be interested to watch Donald Trump over the next maybe the next week or few weeks, to see if he pulls back a little bit, if he sees what Elizabeth was trying to help him see about not feeding this thing and letting it fall apart on its own. I don't think Donald Trump has to do anything. He just has to step back, pull his energy back, and it'll crumble. So I hope he does that. Feeding it it's not going to help it stop. It's going to continue it. So we'll have to see if it is ready to crumble and fall apart. And it all depends on Donald Trump, in my opinion.